The rain wasn't heavy that morning, just enough to miss the glass doors at Linton and Hargrave Consulting in downtown Minneapolis. Inside, the lobby gleamed with polished marble tiles, overhead fluorescents hummed steadily, and the faint aroma of espresso lingered in the air. Professionals moved with purpose, clad in tailored coats and fixed to their phones, as if the entire building operated on momentum alone. No one noticed Terence Dupree at first, when he stepped through the revolving door. He wore a dark navy trench coat, well kept, but not flashy, and carried a weathered leather briefcase. No designer labels, no entourage. Just a tall, composed black man in his mid-40s with sharp eyes, and a presence more quiet than commanding, but one that, perhaps, should not have been overlooked. The receptionist looked up briefly. Her nameplate read, Megan. She couldn't have been more than 26. Blonde bob, thick lashes, AirPod in one ear. Her attention flicked between Terence and the digital clock behind her. "Hi," Terence said in a calm, even tone. "I have a 10 a.m. with the executive board." She blinked, unimpressed. "And you're with which department?" "I'm meeting with the board of directors," he repeated, patiently. "I'm Terence Dupree." She leaned back slightly, raising an eyebrow. "Right, you're with sales or something. Vendors don't usually come through the front." "No," he said, his tone still polite. "I'm the CEO of D-Tech Solutions." She exhaled sharply, glancing at her monitor. "Well, you're not on my list. Maybe you're at the wrong location. This is 1224 Wabash Avenue, correct?" She rolled her eyes. "Yes, but like I said, outside reps use the loading dock around back, not the main lobby." Terence didn't argue. He'd seen this kind of thing before, dismissed without cause, based on assumptions. No point in escalating. No need to pull out credentials, or raise his voice. He paused, gave her a measured nod, and turned calmly toward the exit. Just as he reached the door, an elevator opened behind him. A young man, likely a junior associate, maybe fresh out of business school, stepped out and froze when he saw Terence. "Mr. Dupree," he said, eyes wide. "You're here early. They're still getting set up." Terence raised a hand gently without turning around. "Tell them thank you for the opportunity," he said, pushing through the door and stepping back into the rain. The elevator closed behind the stunned associate, and at the front desk, Megan returned to scrolling her phone, unaware her moment of casual dismissal had just cost the company everything. Because what she didn't realize, what almost no one in that building knew, was exactly who they had turned away. Terence Dupree didn't come from wealth or connections. He wasn't born into boardrooms or prep schools. He grew up in Mobile, Alabama, in a leaning-to-bedroom home, where the roof whistled when it rained. His mother cleaned hospital floors on the night shift. His father went around, fixed cars from their front yard. Terence learned resilience early. What he lacked in privilege, he made up for in focus. He didn't speak often, but when he did, people listened, because he never wasted words. By 16, he'd built a working desktop computer from discarded school parts, not for games, but to understand how the machine thought. While his peers chased parties and crushes, Terence was teaching himself how to code on a cracked monitor propped up on a stack of old phone books. He earned a partial scholarship to Tuskegee University, graduated in the top 5% of his class. He didn't pledge a frat or chase clout. He was building something, and he knew it. His first startup, a modest cloud platform for small logistics firms, gained traction. Within 6 years, it was acquired. By the time he walked into Linton and Hargrave that morning, D-Tech Solutions had grown into a multi-million-dollar tech firm specializing in cybersecurity for Fortune 500 companies, and he was minutes away from finalizing a $42 million partnership. But he never made it past the front desk. And within a week, news of what happened went public. The story of a black CEO dismissed as a delivery guy by a receptionist, who didn't bother to check the schedule, spread fast. The client pulled out. Shareholders demanded answers. The company issued statements, launched internal reviews, but it was too late. One moment of prejudice, one missed opportunity, one quiet man who chose dignity over confrontation, and it brought a corporation to its knees. The first scheduling software Terence Dupree ever wrote was built in a cramped two-bedroom apartment above a laundromat in Birmingham. It was supposed to streamline mobile team logistics. It flopped. But he didn't wallow. He went back, tore it apart, and rebuilt it. Same concept, sharper execution. That second version, it got acquired. Modest win, but D-Tech Solutions, that was the one that changed everything. Terence launched D-Tech from scratch. No seed money from tech bros. No champagne product unveilings. Just discipline, airtight contracts, and systems that delivered. By the 4th year, major logistics firms across the Southwest were relying on D-Tech to coordinate freight operations. He kept his crew small. his book spotless, his door open. By 44, he had turned D-Tech into one of the fastest scaling SaaS companies in the central U.S. Not based in Silicon Valley, not New York, not LA. He never needed those zip codes to validate what he'd built. Now, Holston and Royce, the very firm that had just told him to go around back like some delivery guy, had spent 7 months preparing to ink a $42 million partnership with him. To site visits, endless paperwork, clean audits. All that remained was a final handshake, and some small talk in the boardroom. A formality. They just wanted to meet the man behind the name. They got their chance, and they blew it. Because he didn't wear a lanyard with credentials dangling from his neck. Because he didn't look like their image of a CEO. Because their front desk receptionist couldn't imagine a black man in a trench coat being the one they'd flown in to finalize the deal. Terrence had seen it before. At banks, at hotels, even at tech expos, where people handed him empty plates assuming he was staff, not a speaker. But he never got angry. Not because it wasn't personal, it was, but because anger gave them power, and they hadn't earned that. As he walked down Wabash Avenue, mist collecting on his coat sleeves, his phone buzzed twice in his pocket. He glanced at the screen. A message from his VP in Phoenix. Everything was greenlit. The contract was set to sign next week. Terrence paused, looked up at the skyline, and made a quiet decision right there on the sidewalk. One call. Just one. He scrolled to a contact labeled Travis R. Archon Systems. Tapped. Across the street, Holston and Royce's glass tower stood tall, sleek, and suddenly irrelevant. The call connected after 2 rings. Terrence. The voice on the other end was both surprised and curious. You don't usually call me unless something's gone sideways. What's up? Terrence's tone was even, but with a faint trace of amusement. I've got something for you. You at your desk? Yeah, what's going on? Terrence stepped under the awning of a small cafe across from the building. The scent of bread and coffee drifted out onto the sidewalk. You remember that systems integration Holston's been dragging out for months? Of course. You were supposed to close that today, right? I was, Terrence said, until their front desk decided I wasn't worth letting upstairs. There was a beat of silence on the line. You're joking, Travis finally said, stunned. Nope. Didn't even check the schedule? Told me to use the loading dock. Travis let out a low whistle. What were you wearing? Hoodie. Just a coat. Carrying a briefcase. Guess it didn't sparkle enough. Another pause. Then Travis said, so, are you serious about what I think you're about to do? Terrence didn't rush his answer. If Archon can match the terms, and I mean every line item, then I'm ready to pivot the deal. We can, Travis replied immediately. Our legal team reviewed the last draft weeks ago. We're ready to sign. Good, Terrence said. My general counsel will reach out before the end of the day. Let's make it official. Travis didn't hide his excitement. Terrence, I don't even know what to say. That's massive. Start with thank you, Terrence said, his voice warm but steady. And don't make me regret it. You won't? I swear it. Terrence ended the call and slipped the phone back into his coat. He didn't stand there to watch the tower across the street. It looked the same, pristine, polished, important, but to him, it already felt hollow. Up on the 29th floor, in a sleek boardroom with an untouched pitcher of cucumber water at the center of the table, 9 executives sat in polished chairs, waiting for a man who had already left. Senior executives, partners, and the lead negotiator sat in a room that grew more tense by the minute. He kept glancing at his watch. Still nothing. Any word? One partner asked. The negotiator shook his head. He confirmed just yesterday. He's never missed a meeting. A partner frowned. Send someone down to check. An intern took the elevator down and returned moments later, breathless. No sign of him. Reception said someone came in earlier, but they turned him away, thought he was a contractor. A chill moved through the room like a gust of cold air. They didn't even let him up, the negotiator asked slowly. That's what she said, the intern replied. The murmurs turned into confusion, confusion into tension. A couple of execs started typing furiously on their phones. Then Simone Barkley, sharp-eyed, calm, and always precise, spoke. If he walked out and he's serious about this deal, it's already gone. But maybe, someone began. No, you don't walk away from 7 months of negotiation, unless you already have your next move lined up. That man doesn't bluff. Silence followed. The negotiator finally asked, should we reach out? Simone shook her head. You can try, but it won't change anything. Across town, Terrence was already sliding into the back seat of a rideshare headed for the airport. As the car pulled into traffic, he didn't look back. He didn't need to. He already knew how this would play out. Upstairs, the boardroom was still waiting, unaware that their window of opportunity had already slammed shut. Simone Barkley shook her head. Terrence Dupree doesn't play games. If he's quiet, it's deliberate. That afternoon, confirmation hit like a bolt. Archon Systems, Holston and Royce's biggest rival, published a press release. We are thrilled to announce a strategic partnership with Detect Solutions, the Midwest's leading logistics optimization platform. The email hit inboxes at 2:03 p.m. By 2:15, the boardroom was silent. Someone dropped a pen. A senior advisor leaned back, muttered, "Well, that's the ball game. Can we win it back?" Someone asked Simone. She didn't blink. You can't uninsult a man like that. At the front desk, Megan was still oblivious. She didn't find out who Terrence was until drinks at night with a friend from HR. "You know that big tech deal we've been working on for 6 months?" her friend whispered. "Yeah, that was the guy you turned away Friday." Megan blinked. "No way. That guy." Her friend just nodded. "He's worth more than our entire quarterly profit." Megan laughed. "Uneasy. Okay. But he didn't say he was important." "He did, Megan. You just didn't listen." By the next morning, HR was sending out emails about sensitivity training and front desk protocols. Megan was pulled into a meeting about public perception and reputational risk. She kept asking, "How was I supposed to know?" But no one had a good answer, because that was the problem. Meanwhile, Terrence was already deep in meetings with Archon's executive team. The deal moved fast, signed in 3 days. With it, Archon gained exclusive access to Detect's scheduling AI, immediately setting them ahead of Holston and Royce. Clients noticed. One by one, long-standing customers started asking questions. Then came cancellations. Then silence. In just 10 business days, Holston and Royce lost 3 major contracts and a government pilot program they'd been cultivating for years. Their stock dropped 12% in a week, but it was like chasing smoke. One client from Des Moines didn't even let him get through his pitch. "You lost Etex," the man said. "We're moving to Archon." Click. In 1 week, the firm had lost over $18 million in projected revenue, and the slide wasn't slowing. Simone Barkley sat at her desk, scrolling through LinkedIn. She had seen this coming, not just because of the mistake, but because of what it revealed. Their success had been built on pedigree, on connections, on image. But somewhere along the way, they forgot that real power doesn't always wear a suit. She'd believed in Terrence from the start, respected what he'd built, admired his quiet, steady hand. And now, watching it all unravel, she wasn't even surprised. Then the press got wind of it. A local business blog in St. Paul ran the story first. Tech pioneer walks away from major deal after being turned away at reception. The headline exploded. Business outlets picked it up. Reddit forums dissected it. Twitter lit up with takes. People didn't know Terrence Dupree personally, but they knew his story, being judged, dismissed, overlooked. Now he was a symbol, a quiet disruptor, a new kind of folk hero. Soon, screenshots of Megan's old posts began circulating. Nothing overtly hostile, but just sarcastic enough to add fuel to the fire. Holston and Royce issued a vague statement about internal reflection and enhancing inclusivity, but no one cared. The damage had a name. Terrence Dupree, however, never made a statement. No press, no tweets, no interviews, just silence. And that silence spoke louder than any speech. He didn't make an announcement. No emails, no calendar holds, no press. He walked through the same glass doors, wearing the same dark coat, carrying the same worn briefcase. This time, the security guard on duty stood the moment he saw him and radioed upstairs. Within minutes, someone from the executive floor was already on their way down. Terrence didn't stop at the front desk, didn't glance at it. There was no Megan now, just Rosalind, a soft-spoken temp with polite manners, who offered a simple, "Good morning," not recognizing who stood before her. He gave a nod, barely, and waited. Simone Barkley was the one who met him. She stepped off the elevator in a sharp black coat, expression unreadable, neither cold nor warm. She didn't offer a handshake at first, just said his name, Terrence, as if acknowledging something overdue. He answered with the same measured tone. "Simone, appreciate you coming," she said, "even if it's not for what we hoped." He didn't reply to that. They walked together to a small, private conference room on the 3rd floor. No sweeping views, no design flair, just 2 chairs, a table, and a carafe of coffee someone had thoughtfully left behind. Neither of them touched it. Simone sat. "I'll be direct," she began. "We've taken a hit, lost 5 major clients. 2 more are scaling back. Our standing, well, you know." Terrence said nothing. "We've made changes," she continued. "The people responsible, they're gone." "That's good," he said calmly. "But that's not why I'm here." She folded her hands. "Then why?" He looked her in the eye. "Someone asked if I'd ever go public about what happened." She held his gaze, waiting. "I told them no," he said. "Because I'm not interested in revenge. That's not my lane." Simone let out a quiet breath, subtle, almost invisible. "I came," he added, because I needed to see what I walked away from to remind myself the decision was right. He stepped outside without a word. The wind caught his coat, and for the first time since the deal fell through, he let himself smile, not smug, not triumphant, just sure. Inside, Simone lingered a moment longer, watching him disappear into the morning crowd. A man they could have built something powerful with, a man they misjudged, overlooked, dismissed. And still, he'd given them something most never do: grace. But the lesson didn't just stay with her. Everyone who'd seen it felt it. A truth you couldn't dress up with a PR spin. People talk about power like it always arrives loud. Name tags, grand entrances, applause. But real power, the kind that shifts rooms quietly, that doesn't need to declare itself. That power looks a lot like Terence Dupree. No title on his chest, no entourage. Just a man, his work, and the integrity that shaped him. Halston and Royce had learned the hard way. Arrogance doesn't just lose deals. It exposes cracks you didn't know were there. They'd built their image on pedigree, on polish. But somewhere along the way, they forgot, not all value wears a designer suit. Simone had been the first to see Terence's worth. She admired what he built, admired his restraint, and watching everything unravel, she couldn't say she was shocked. Then came the press. A tech blog from Minneapolis broke the story. Top logistics deal falls apart after executive snubbed in lobby. Competitor signs deal instead. It went viral. Business sites picked it up. Reddit threads dissected it. Social media ran wild with takes. No one knew Terence personally, but everyone recognized the story. Everyone had been dismissed once, judged by appearance, treated like they didn't matter. And suddenly, Terence Dupree was a quiet symbol for all of them. But the rest of them, they knew. The dominoes had fallen, and the hand that tipped them wasn't loud, wasn't angry. It was calm, measured, focused. 2 months later, just as the city shook off its late March chill, Terence returned.